Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game of Finance. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Davie Mach, founder of Box Advisory. Davie, thanks for coming.
Thanks, man. You got my name right, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, what do people usually say?
People usually call me David, but funny story, my parents actually spelled it wrong on my birth certificate, and it became Davie.
There you go.
Yeah.
And now it works.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you as Davie. We've got the content and everything. It's all happening.
Yeah, it's cool.
Mate, it's good to see you again, and thanks for your time. And today, I think, we talk to the same type of clients, business owners, investors, and the last month has been huge, for the tax environment, for politics. And, just recently, last week, we had another change to the proposed budget changes. And I think today what I'd love to do is really dive into what those original changes were and how they're really going to impact small business owners and property investors. And then with the most recent changes, how that, I guess, changes the landscape again. There is so much uncertainty and whatnot. And really just to start, I guess, what's your feeling? What are you hearing from, small business owners and property investors at the moment off the back of those changes?
So that sounds like two questions. So first things first, what am I feeling? I'm feeling burnt out constantly because, just constant changes that are happening and not really much answers. So there's just like, here's what we think we're doing, but we haven't legislated, we haven't even pushed it into parliament. They've tried and there's just backlash. And then there's constant changes. Like last week on Thursday, there was another change, right? So I'm feeling a bit burnt out because we had to explain things to clients, but then the problem is there's no certainty. Now, how do our clients feel? Because I work with predominantly small businesses and investors. They feel frustrated. They feel that, what's the point of innovating? What's the point of investing? Because it just seems like we're just going to constantly keep getting taxed. And I guess if I put my shoes in our clients' point of view, it's just like, well, we're already getting taxed quite a lot. We're taking the risk, but it looks like you're trying to just take the reward. And we get it that we need to provide taxes to the government, for the fair share of things. Australia's a beautiful country. But the problem right now is that where is the money going? And why aren't we targeting the inefficiencies of the money that is going to, places?
Well, that's right. And that could be a whole other podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like where the money's going and what it's being wasted on $100 million for a website and, all the rest of it. But, with those changes, if we sort of look at negative gearing for the first one, like that is a massive change.
Yeah.
Negative gearing's been around for a very long time. My view, it was there to really promote investors to provide housing to Australia so that there's properties for those who can't afford a home to be able to rent. And with that change, I guess, completely leaving the market, except for new homes from the 1st of July next year, I've got so many clients coming to me and asking me, well, should I be buying this property in my personal name? Should I be looking at different structures? Or should I be looking at new builds? I guess for you, do you have a view in terms of if somebody asks you that question, should I be buying property or should I be buying property in a certain structure? How do you look to respond to a client asking you that right now?
Well, first thing is I've got to put a disclaimer out there. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have a financial license to be able to give you advice on where to invest. But I can give you like the different structures and different ideas of what other clients are doing. Yeah, generally, the reason why people go into property in Australia is because property is the one that gives you the good rate of return. And it's not something that you have to do. You don't have to have like a uni degree to be able to invest, right? When it comes to ETFs and shares, people just have no idea if this business is good because you need to be able to read profit and loss and balance sheet.
Yeah, very complex financial instruments.
Yes. And I talk to my older clients and I talk to them about the ETF. They have no bloody clue what the ETF is. They don't even know how to sign on to their internet banking, let alone buy shares, right? So, but they know property because they purchased property before for their home. They can touch the property, they can see it, whereas shares, they can't see it, right? They don't know what it is. And that's how, investors invest. Now, if you tax that and you remove negative gearing, people are just now wondering, where the hell do I put my investment? And the funny thing is that the government also has they removed negative gearing, but they've also then applied CGT, removed CGT discount on shares, other investments, including property. So now it's not that investors are out of the property market. They just don't know. They're just a bit uncertain where the money should go now.
And we've seen that as well. We've had clients who we've been working with for, 2, 3, 4 months who are just putting things on hold because, they're not sure of what to do next. You know? And that's completely natural. You know, we actually don't know what is law yet because it's still all proposed.
Yes.
I think we're going to get some clarity on it this week or next.
Well, that's what they said a few weeks ago. So, and then they made more changes, right?
That's right. That's right. It's one of those things where I guess for clients that have asked me that before, we've always wanted to understand, I guess, the serviceability first. Because if we're going on a wealth creation journey and we want to be able to obtain X amount of assets in time, we need to be aware of how we look to structure those facilities. And, utilizing your personal name was the most advantageous structure from a tax position for the advice we had for those clients, because you could use negative gearing, right? Where now it's very different.
Yeah. I actually feel very bad for the high income earners, like the doctors, the lawyers that earn a lot of income, and they're not allowed to set up a structure where they can have like income feeding to a company, for example, because there's something called personal services income that was designed by the government or the ATO to stop people from like splitting income. Like I get it. But they are earning such high income, and negative gearing was their way of minimizing their taxes and then taking the money they earned, the hard cash that they've earned, and reinvesting it for the future, which is good for the economy as well. That was the whole point of negative gearing in the first place. But they've gotten rid of that now. So basically, the high income earners have no other strategy. They're trying to think of different strategies for the income they're earning to just minimize their tax, but it's harder and harder for them to invest. Now, they can still take the money and put it into another structure. However, they still have to pay, now they have to pay the 47% tax first. There's no negative gearing. There's none of anything like that anymore. Like it's harder and harder. And that's the problem. Going back to your original question, which was like what type of structure or what do I advise clients? Right now, if now that negative gearing's gone, there are still some structures that allow it, like SMSFs that allow negative gearing still. Generally, people don't like to invest in property or investments that have negative gearing in the SMSF. The reason being is because the tax is so low in the SMSF. So if you negative gear it, and you're not really enjoying the benefit of those the low taxes.
And you generally want that property to provide you income in the future.
Right?
That's right.
So, but some investment strategies, you can do it, like growth assets, for example, that are temporary or short term.
Yeah, to take you into another asset that may be income producing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously new property. Problem with new property is that comes with a lot of problems as well, right? New property. You're not sure if you're buying like a house and land package, it could just drag on for years. And the builder could go bust. There's just so much risk there. And
you could be paying a real big premium for it too, right? Shiny and new, it's hard to build something now. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
Materials, labor, it's the highest it's been ever.
Yeah, and the council doesn't, or the government delays things and take longer to do things. And as a result, you could be paying interest for 6 months. And people don't know that. Like people don't realize that. Like I just did a property for myself, right? And I was building my home. And builder said, it's going to take 12 months. Ended up taking longer. Not his fault. Things just happen. I get it. I totally get it. But yeah, dragged out for 6 months. How much is 6 months worth of interest? Guys, like it could be like 20K, it could be 50K. That's just how much it could be. And that's the risk that you're taking. So now negative gearing, you can't even claim that if you're going to do an investment property, right? So yeah, it's a bit of a weird situation right now for us because we're sitting in like no man's land right now, trying to figure out what are the actual rules first before we make a decision. Now, the rules haven't changed too much. It's just negative gearing is gone. But we generally tell clients that you shouldn't really be investing for negative gearing anyway. You should be investing for making money, right?
I love that. Yeah, we want capital growth.
Yeah.
A tax advantage is great, but it's not the be all and the end all. We want these things to double and triple over time.
Yeah, because if it's negative geared the whole time, then what's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Like you actually,
unless you're getting incredible upside in capital growth.
Yes.
Doesn't make sense.
So you're looking for capital growth. So then you shouldn't really be structuring your investment for negative gearing. You should be structuring your investment for capital growth, right?
Yes.
So therefore, we're looking at like companies, still trust, or SMSFs. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Still sometimes personal name. We do like having something in the personal name, especially if that investment property could be your main residence one day, or owner occupier, like 2 years down the track, or it could be your owner occupier now and then later on investment. So if you...
And it's interesting. That's something I guess we're having a lot of conversations with clients now, because the conversation, for the most part, not for everybody, is if you're in an owner occupier home and you've got a decent amount of equity in there and you want to buy another one, selling that home, taking the CGT free benefit and rolling that into the next owner occ has really always been a strategy that's made sense to us. But for some individuals where perhaps they haven't got that much capital growth out of that property and the current property isn't fitting their needs, but they still feel that that market has got legs in terms of the fundamentals to give them growth, keeping that property, if it is negatively geared, given that it's grandfathered under the current rules or the new rules if they go through, is something you could definitely explore that makes sense.
Yeah, people are probably leaning towards like, maybe we could just like negative gear our current property because we lived in it before. And purchased it before 12th of May. Now, some people don't even think about this, but like, how you're looking at companies, trusts, SMSFs, and your personal name. What about your spouse? Like, so that's also something I look at as well. So the reason being is because as a business owner, because I deal predominantly with business owners, it's high risk. So you choose one spouse being the low risk spouse and the one that's high risk, and assets in the low risk spouse. Unless they divorce you, and then you lose everything.
You're super high risk, but that's part of the game. But it's interesting you say that, because the owner of the asset is the one who is deriving the tax benefit, right? So if you, and I get clients that I guess we need to clarify this all the time, you can be a joint borrower. You can, because you're spousal, you get that ability to be able to use that collective income.
Yeah, people don't know that,
but
right?
one person can own the asset.
Yes.
So one person can obtain the incentives and the benefits using collective income. So like you said, if you've got a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant where, they're carrying PI risk and you want to deleverage that risk personally, having the asset in the spouse's name makes a lot of sense from an asset protection standpoint, but also for an investment, you can obtain that tax benefit that way for the spouse.
Yeah. That's a very complicated way to say it. What I just say is...
Simplify it for me.
Chuck it in the wife's name because the banks actually allow it.
Yes.
And use the income of the husband because the husband is... say it's a husband that's earning the income. And you can use the income of the husband, even though the wife doesn't make that much income. You can still do that. And it's like crazy that not many people know about that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It can be like you compound that benefit over time.
Yeah.
It's significant.
Yes. And the ATO rules allow the partner, even though the loan is 50-50, allows the partner to claim 100% of the interest.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Because it's based on who actually owns the property.
Got it.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, right?
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And mate, just to touch on negative gearing before we move on, and something we're talking about offline around, I guess, different ways to look to obtain negative gearing in the current environment. So we're talking about a structure where if we were to have a loan in our individual name, we contribute that loan into a company. We've got the shareholder of that company as an individual, so same name as the loan. And then we look to invest that money that's in the company into shares or property or whatever it may be. There is a tax ruling where they've looked to say that, well, we can actually claim the negative gearing benefit for this loan that's sitting within your personal name against the individual's taxable income, not expensing it at the company level.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And is that something you think
Yep.
may be looked at moving forward under the current changes?
Yeah, so I've seen some videos about that, and it's gone across like, the accounting forums, and people have talked about it. Honestly, like it's case by case basis, and it really depends. You showed me a tax ruling. I didn't have time to look at it, the whole thing. But the way it works is, from reading just like a quick look at the tax ruling from just the name, it looked like that the individual is pulling money out of their home loan or wherever, getting a loan to invest into the business. Now, invest in shares. That's what the tax ruling was saying, to invest in the shares. So purchasing shares specifically. When you buy shares, you're looking for dividend income because you own, 50%, 10% of those shares, and those that business or those shares will go up in value or provide some sort of income to you via dividends.
Dividend in time, yeah.
And so therefore, as a result of that, there is a connection of income to your expenses so you can get that tax deduction. So you can get the tax deduction against the interest that you're paying based on that loan that would eventually give you some sort of financial reward. Now, the argument that I'm seeing online is that you're lending the money to the company or the business.
With an agreement, I believe.
Yeah, with
that
an
needs to
agreement.
validate it, yes.
Yes. So there needs to be some sort of nexus where there's some sort of income generating. Now, the answer is very ambiguous because like the ATO needs to understand if there is some sort of income that you're generating. So if you lend the money to a company and the company does not provide the money back, doesn't give you any interest, doesn't give you any dividends, then the ATO then goes, well, where is the income link? Where's the link of the deduction, the spending towards you getting actual income? So it's also similar to like hobbies, for example, right? You go and spend 100 grand on buying Pokemon cards. You never generate any income whatsoever because you just keep the Pokemon cards at home because it gives you a sense of enjoyment. Then the ATO says, well, we're not allowing you to claim those tax deductions as well because for the last 2 to 3 years, there has not been any income. Or there has been some sort of income, but it's not enough to show to me that it's actually a business or income generating activity. Same thing applies. So it's a case-by-case basis. Is your business or is the shares that you're buying or is the money that you're lending into the company generating some sort of income for you? And for the next 2 to 3 years, it doesn't, then the ATO has grounds to say that we're not going to allow.
Is 2 to 3 years the time frame or is it
the reason why I say 2 to 3 years?
Undefined.
Yeah, the reason why I say 2 to 3 years is because the ATO has a 4-year rule where they can't go back after 4 years, right?
Gotcha.
So generally, they won't wait till the 4th year. They'll wait to 2 to 3 years and then audit you. They take a bit of time to audit, right? You lodge your tax returns, after 12, 24 months, they probably then review all your tax returns. And the funny thing about it, and I don't work with the ATO, so I'm not 100% sure, but generally, they like to audit 2 years rather than 1. Why? Because if you're wrong, they can get 2 years worth of taxes, not 1. So I see it as a business to them, right? Why would they only just audit you on the first year? They'll wait 2 years and get like 2 years worth of taxes if you're wrong. Yeah. Now, that's how I see it. So to answer that question, it's a case-by-case basis. If that investment generates income for you and there's interest paid back, there's dividends paid back, then makes sense. And the money actually goes to the company and the company actually uses it for income generation, then it makes sense. But if you just put the money there, there's no money going to be paid back for the next 2 to 3 years. There's no interest. There's no dividends. Then that's when you're giving grounds to the ATO for them to deny that tax claim.
Gotcha. So you need to get the right advice. You need to structure it and frame it in the right lens with the right assets by the sounds of things.
Yeah, but the problem is as well with property, like how do you know? Like it's an investment, right? So like the money might be tied up in negative gearing purposes, for example, or might be just tied up in the property that you're making loan repayments and you don't end up selling, which is what a lot of business owners do. They don't, or investors do. They don't sell.
Yeah.
What happens then? So that's the part where you don't sell because you don't want to pay the taxes. So you can't pull the money out. You keep reinvesting the money. You don't generate any income. You don't get any income back into your personal name because you're worried about the taxes in your personal name. And then it's a double-edged sword. So you just got to be very careful with that.
Mate, capital gains tax, big change. It's been I guess they haven't mucked with it for a while. And it's been, I think, a very good tool for those that have done well, in property shares business to, be able to take some profits off the table. And we had it move from the 50% discount to indexing. And now we've seen some other changes come through last week. Do you mind walking through for the guys at home around what, I guess, those latest changes were and why, or I guess, do you think they're going to be valuable? And we spoke about the timing as well being really important on when those come into effect.
Yeah, first things first, the small business CGT concessions that went from 2 mil to 10 mil. I'm not going to go talk about like that previous changes.
No,
Everyone's probably seen it. That's only for businesses. And you have to be classified as they call it active asset. Active asset means that you're using it for business for more than half of its life, right? Whatever it is. So you're either running a business and it's been generating income as a business for more than half of its time, or you have an asset that you sold that has been used in your business actively for more than half its time you owned it. So that's what it means. Confusing. Sounds confusing, right?
Yes.
Yes. Gets even more confusing. So I just want to point out that the CGT discount was a very simple way of calculating your taxes that anyone didn't need to go to an accountant, wait in line back in the day, figure out the taxes. Someone would sit there, compile all your shoebox worth of receipts, put it in like a system, calculate the taxes. Hey, maybe this is complicated. Come back 2 weeks later and we'll work out your taxes and we'll tell you how much your taxes is. It was too complicated because indexation was so complicated. You had to work out the inflation. You had to work out your cost base. You had to add everything up. Then you had to apply the different rules. Now, the small business CGT concessions is even more confusing than indexation. So now, first things first, it's a terrible concession for people to use if it's just like you made a 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand or 100 grand profit. It's just the amount of work that's required to calculate if you actually can get the discount could cost you anywhere between like 1 to 5 grand in taxes, in tax fees.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you're losing money just by doing like trying to get the calculation done. And you might not be eligible in the first place.
But you still need to go through that process to understand it.
And the funny thing about this is not all tax agents know how to do it. Not all tax agents know how to do it because it's bloody complicated. If you go to a local accountant, like a local accountant, just like, you know, on like a shop where next to your house, most likely doesn't know how to do it. And that's the problem. The ATO thinks that we could just increase this 2 mil to 10 mil and then there you go, whoop-a-doo, like you can get the concessions and it's all simple. That's why the 50% discount was such a popular thing. It's not just because people got a tax break. It's also because it's simple. It's easy to calculate. People can figure it out on their own.
Back of an envelope, just, okay, cool, this is what I should walk away with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need simple tax rules to make it easy for the public to make investment decisions without worrying about taxes. And that's the point. You're not supposed to invest just based on taxes. But now, the problem right now, and I see what's happening in the market, is it's just a standstill because people just don't know what to move now, like how to invest because it's so complicated right now. What structure do I invest in? How do I get the CGT discount? Or now there's these small business CGT concessions. Can I get that? And then now they need to find the right accountant to talk to them. And so that's why everything's just a mess.
Well, it's interesting because that was one of the first questions that I had and many clients of ours had is, well, is my current structure right for me? And do I need to vary that structure within the next sort of 6, 12, 24 months? You know, and does these changes bring forward when I need to do that? You know, What are your thoughts with that?
Yeah, well, but that's the problem. The changes aren't set in stone. They're just been announced on a mic right now.
That's right.
And it's just like, who can claim it? What's an innovative company? What's what's a tech company? Who can claim and all these discounts? It's too confusing. And then like, what is considered new property? We don't even know. So that's the problem right now. Based on those new rules that are changing, that's one big problem with the 2 mil to 10 mil. There's another problem, right? The discount itself, if you do the actual calculation, I haven't done it yet because it just got announced last week, but I know for a fact that the small business CGT concessions moving from 2 mil to 10 mil is still not as good as what we had previously.
Gotcha.
The reason why people invested in small businesses and people ran a small business is because of the fact that that it's a way for their retirement. The whole point of the small business CGT concessions is that most people, they get to the very end of their life and look at retiring, won't have super because as
they put all their money into their business. Like, it's their livelihood. They've got, the family working in there. It's not just one person often.
Yes, and that's the problem. That's why the ATO and the government decided that if you ever sell your business, we're gonna give you a tax break to then go, we're not gonna tax you on your small business because this is your retirement fund. And that's good for the economy because then you don't need to rely on the age pension. You can use the money that you've made on that you spent years, 15, 20 years building, and you had no super fund, because if you put it into the super fund, your business suffers. Correct. That's the thing. That's the difference. When you generate income as a wage, like the money that comes to you is after tax dollars. So you can do whatever the hell you want with it because the tax has been made. You're not investing it. You can invest it. Sure, great. You can put it into your super fund. Cool. It's all good and done. But the problem is there's no rule with small businesses, especially when you're running a sole trader, that you need to put money into super.
That's right. And you need to pay for staff. You need to pay, GST, payroll tax.
Yes.
Their super.
Yeah.
Workers' comp, all the stuff that comes with it.
Yeah. So the business owners get paid last. And the result is they never generally think about the super. So if you actually do the maths or you look at the stats, you would see that most business owners don't have much super funds, like super, at the end of their lives. So that's the biggest problem. Now you're saying, we're going to just bump it up to 10 mil and then it's all sweet and done. Honestly, first things first, those small business CGT concessions happened like 20, 30 years ago, right? It came out. There's no indexation. There was no changes. That 2 mil was what it was previously 20 years ago or something like that. So there hasn't been a change, and it should have been a change long time ago, right? Now they're saying we're giving you a tax break now that if you ever sell 10, like say it can go up to 10 mil. But the problem is, one, it's too complicated. Two, the tax break is less now because you're not getting the 50% discount. So initially, the whole point was the 50% discount on the 12-month discount, as well as the small business CGT concessions, was designed in a way to minimize most of the taxes, like a majority. It goes down to like about 10 to 11%. Or 0% if you roll the money into super. The whole point was supposed to stop people from relying on age pension and just focusing on having that income that they generated from the businesses when they sell for their retirement. Don't tax them because they would not rely on that age pension. Now, they may need to rely on the age pension. So it would actually drive up more costs for the government. That's how I see it.
So with that 2 to 10 mil, I guess, because businesses are going to need to value themselves 30 June next year, correct? To be able to draw a line under, I guess, the old versus the new. So those caps, I guess they haven't announced when that's coming in yet, right? So if it's from now, amazing. There could be some great advantages for business owners with thinking about selling or restructuring.
Yes.
But if they do it from the 1st of July onwards, I guess any time from that point, that's where the new CGT rule will kick in and be applied, correct? So you have a cost base.
Yes.
That will be reset 30 June. Then from there on, any upside will carry into the future under the new rules. Is that the right way?
Yeah, the calculation works like this. So basically, if you sell later on down the track after 5 years, what happens is you have to do two types of calculation. One is the CGT discount applied to the 1st of July 2027. And then you do another calculation on that value minus whatever the increase is from 1st of July 2027 all the way to the date of sale.
Under the indexation model.
And the indexation model. Yeah. So very complicated. Then from then, you need to apply an overall small business CGT concession against that. So it's like 3 calculations in one. Yeah. So back then it was like maybe
it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to do 3 calculations, and it's just so confusing, right? Because now, like, which accountant can do something like that, and which accountant wants to do it? So yeah, you're right. Like, that's the way to do it. One, it's very confusing, and two, most people will find that maybe we should just restructure on the 1st of July 2027 or close to there, and structure their investments they structure their business differently, so they don't get taxed not on CGT but on the trust laws, the new trust laws. So there's a 30% tax on
That's
trust.
a great segue into the next point. Trusts, that, I feel like that has been the sleeping giant that probably hasn't had enough airtime, because that is a huge impact to business owners.
Yeah, the reason why people want to restructure is because it's not just for it's for asset protection, 100%. When you started your business and structure, initially it was very you don't need something that's very complicated because it costs too much money. So later on down the track, you realize that it's not good for asset protection, and it's also not good for tax. The way the
tax planning, being able to move money to spouse or buckets or whatever you need as your business evolves.
Yes, and then you're also not good for succession planning. If something happens to you, who takes over next, right? It would just be complicated. So you want the business to succeed after you exit or after you pass away if something happens, right? So that's why restructuring happens. It's like a part of life, right? So it would just push people to do the restructure earlier. Now on the back of those tax laws, those new trust laws, it would just go, well, that's going to happen on the 1st of July 2028, where there's going to be a minimum 30% tax on trust. But on top of that, sorry, not minimum, 30% tax. And on top of that, there may not be credits passed over to bucket companies or refunds to individuals. So that's where people are just going, well, this our structure is not right now.
Because the common structure from what I see is generally you've got a trading Pty Ltd with an upstream owner as a family trust. So that any dividends that want to be distributed go up to the family trust and sort of go out to where they need to go.
Surprisingly,
often into a bucket company.
Surprisingly, that structure there is not for everyone. A lot of accountants have set up like a family trust to run a whole business.
Interesting.
So they all completely messed up. And that's actually how we used to do it. Like I was taught to set up a family trust to run a business. Why? Because you can distribute the income to all your kids, right? You can distribute your income to your adult kids, your spouse, and then to a bucket company. Why do a company, right? Because back then the tax rate for a company was 30%. It was high. It was quite high. Actually, if you wind it back even more, it was even higher. So people said family trust is amazing because then you can split it between all your family members. And back then, cost of living wasn't that bad. So you could have a lot more kids, right?
True.
So that's why family trusts were really important. And everyone had like a mum and dad type of business, like restaurant, local shop or whatever it is. So it's funny that you see the structure now because that's what it's pushed to. But previously, a lot of businesses actually still in family trusts.
Interesting.
So they're just get a whooping 30% straight away, and also not able to distribute the profits to a company. So therefore, all the profit has to go to an individual.
And to play that out, so if you're trading through a family trust or if you've got upstream ownership via a family trust and you want to get the money out of a company, you're going to pay 30% passing through the family trust.
Yes.
And if you wanted to put that money into a bucket company, there's another 30%. So if you want to keep that money out of your individual name, you're going to have to pay 60% tax. Therefore, it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Therefore, you're better off putting it into an individual and paying the 47.
Yep.
So if these rules do pass, what do you see as a structure that's going to suit a SME business doing, 3-4 mil turnover with, say 300,000 plus of profit? Like, where do you think these individuals, and I know it's very individual based, but what do you think is going to be a structure that's going to make more sense for the mass market?
So I've done a few podcasts about this, like previously before the federal budget, and I've been always pushing companies because it seems like that's what the government wants us to do. They want us to operate through companies. So they've lowered the tax rate to 25% for companies.
That's trading companies with more than 80% of active income, is that correct?
Active income, yeah. Which basically applies to like 90%, probably 95% or 90% of all small businesses, right? So it'll be probably most likely everyone's structuring their businesses through a company and then potentially having a holding company on top of the company if these new rules apply.
Yep. So that's a Pty Ltd, I guess, shareholder for the trading company.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And then have a family trust right at the top that owns that holding company. The reason why you still want the family trust is you want the asset protection. Yes, you can then also distribute dividends to family members. It's still needed to distribute income, not to just one sole owner. Because if something happens to that sole owner, what happens then, right?
Yep.
So asset protection and also splitting income is important. You may set up companies next to the trading company because you want those companies to be considered bucket companies to invest in. And why?
And maybe like say if somebody wanted to buy commercial property or a residential company, that money would flow from the trading company up to the investment company, or holding company, and then I guess a loan to the new bucket or SPV, whatever.
Yeah, there was a bit of commotion about this. So I don't know if you know, but there was a commotion between Jack and some other guy, Dell. I know he's a tax lawyer or something like that. And there was a talk between like, why would you lend the money from a holding company to a bucket company? Why didn't you just invest everything in the holding company, right? I don't understand why people would invest in using the holding company, because if you can still get sued as a landlord. Like there are tenants that use they have an agreement with the holding company. And for example, if you kick them out and there was like a disagreement with like the tenancy agreement and you go into a legal battle, the holding company is liable and at risk, right? And what does the holding company own? Holding company owns the keys to your kingdom.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
There is a big risk, and that's why the money is lent to a bucket company from the holding company down, and then the bucket company invests, and then it contains the risk.
And that separation is important from a financing lens as well, because from a policy perspective, we're looking to invest, say, commercial property or residential property, but we need to use a lease stock type arrangement. We need that entity to be, a brand new co, you know, because we want to purely ring fence that asset we're buying, to have that rent pay for that debt liability.
100%.
So you've got to overlay the tax, I guess, and legal nuances with also the lending
finance,
nuances to be like, well, how can we fund what we want to invest in and move forward?
And that's why it's really good to get a mortgage broker, accountant, and a lawyer that works together.
They need to be on the same team.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody's speaking their own language, and nobody's really looking at the full holistic way forward.
Yeah, but that's the structure that like probably would be the way to go. But the problem is, I find that's the only structure. And isn't that a problem?
It is a problem.
Yeah, that like because every case is different. And there are reasons why those structures are there in the first place. Trusts, companies, SMSFs, all those things like that, right? But the government is trying to make it just one structure, which creates it more complicated. They think it's making it more simple. It actually complicates things more, because when something falls out of the bucket or whatever it is, or people find it just too confusing, they will go and set up all these other structures, and it just doesn't work because they didn't know that this is the only way to do things. Or they need to get actual financial or tax advice, and it costs quite a lot of money to get like that type of structure now.
Well, that's the other thing, if you've got somebody who's just starting a business, who perhaps doesn't have the cash flow to be able to cover, 3, 4, 5 different entities plus individuals, it's going to be a significantly different, I guess, fee for that structure than it is somebody sole trading, going through a company and whatnot.
Yeah, sometimes family trusts work. That's the thing. Like I say to clients, if you're running a restaurant and it's a family-owned business and you've got your family running it with you, then a family trust does actually work for restaurants. Because then you don't need to pay, you don't need to look at the wages. You just distribute the profits at the end of every year. You don't need to worry about super. You don't need to worry about all that stuff. And you can pay the taxes at the very end of the financial year. And it works. It's more simple. You don't have to pay each individual wages calculation and minimum pay and penalty rates because you're family. But now it's just complicated as hell for business owners. And it just doesn't need to be like that. Man, that's the problem. I think that when you're building those tax laws and you're not really thinking about how much it impacts businesses, and that's the repercussion that it is.
And that's the thing, and I guess the latest changes I see is, just a backflip off the back of social pressure, which there's been a lot of. And trusts, I still think it's just the sleeping giant. They pulled out testamentary trust, which was interesting. So I guess for those that don't know, testamentary trust, often if somebody passes away, goes through probate, they create a new testamentary trust, and that's how assets are looked to, or income is looked to be distributed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way testamentary trust is, the way I understand it and explain to clients is basically the trust doesn't exist. It only exists when you pass away and your assets get moved into it. And then what happens is those assets, instead of it going to your partner or next of kin or to your kids individually and split, you want it to go to a trust because you want to contain it and make sure that you pass off your legacy and it doesn't get sold without your wishes, right? The family trust has these rules. The testamentary trust has these rules, and they have to abide by those rules so it stays within the family. So, say, and I'm not a lawyer, but say if you've got your next of kin marry someone else and they go through a divorce, they could pretty much take like 50% of the assets, right? They can take you to court if the assets got passed to your next of kin. Now, that's why a testamentary trust is important, because if you pass it over to a testamentary trust, it's not your next of kin's assets. It's not your kids' assets. It's the testamentary trust assets. So therefore, they abide by your rules that you've created, right? And that's where you distribute the profits. Now, people are arguing that 30% tax rule is a death tax because the money is then going, after you die, the money is supposed to go to a trust, and then now it's getting taxed 30%, even if the money gets distributed to individuals that don't have taxes because they're under $20,000 or something like that. They don't earn any income. So it's not fair. That's what they're arguing.
Oh, it's definitely not fair. And I think, that they copped a lot of blowback from that. So I think that's definitely
because they're not thinking about how it impacts others.
That's right. And it's not clear either. Yeah. I think you're right. They're not looking at the upstream or downstream impact of the changes that they're making.
Yeah.
So,
and that's just testamentary trust. That's just if you pass away, right? But what about, like I said, the family-owned restaurants that through a family trust? You don't probably see it as much because you're dealing with all these businesses that have like trading companies and family trust on top as a shareholder. But I still see family trust businesses that are now stuck because if they restructure, it's going to cost them a crap load of money. They can't afford it. And it's so complicated. And they don't know, should I just bite the bullet and pay $5,000, $10,000 to do this restructure? But hold on a sec. I've got all these assets in the family trust now. I've got a car. I've got maybe even a commercial property in there. If I were to move those out into a trading company, who's going to pay for the stamp duty?
There you go. Yeah, the hidden taxes that you've got to cross that bridge if you're going to make all these big changes.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Everyone back in the day, accountants included, lawyers included, were telling people to buy things through family trust because of the tax benefits and for the asset protection. It changes everything now. So it's just like they've never thought about those guys that have set up assets or owned assets in the family trust.
And I guess that's probably a great sort of segue into the next question. I guess, what do people do from here? We're in the thick of it right now. We, I guess, have seen these changes come out. We've seen the changes again. They're currently not law yet. What does somebody do who's a business owner or a property investor looking for advice?
Yep. So if you're planning to invest now, then you need to get solid advice on the structure based on your investment. And the thing is, if you're learning things online, and that's great, cool, you're getting educated, but then you need to get someone that has a good understanding of what your intentions are, what's your main goal of the investment, and then give you a structuring advice to ensure that you're protected for the future sale or future investment or future income, right?
It needs to be signed off.
Yes.
Again, you need to make sure you're working with partners that can implement, what you've seen and what you've discussed to make sure it's right for you.
And that's if you're pulling the trigger now, like in the next couple months or whatever, you're going to buy a property, you're going to invest in ETFs or whatever it is. You need to get the advice, and you need to find someone that's has a good understanding, has the time to sit there and give you that advice. Now, the problem is some clients take that advice and then just replicate it and keep doing it for other investments. That's not a good idea as well. I've seen that work really bad where they just get advice a year ago and they use that advice constantly. But the problem is the asset class, the investment structure, the main goal of the investment, the intentions all change, the numbers change. And so you need to get constant advice on every investment that you're doing, right? So that's for the investors that are planning to do something in the next couple months, right? Or next 6 months. For the ones that are currently stuck with the structures they have right now for their business or for their investments, I would say don't do anything crazy right now with like restructuring. The reason being is because nothing's legislated yet. It's all ifs and buts and there's still changes. Changes happened last week. Me and a few other, small businesses have been, saying things online just to make sure that the government listens to investors and small businesses. And I think that there should be more changes that are happening, and we shouldn't be settling with the current changes that have happened. Now, if you go and make all those changes and they roll back things, or they don't put it into place, or they change things, then you've just spent all this money to make those changes, and it's not worth it. The biggest issue is like stamp duty has not been taken in consideration if you were to restructure. So it's not worth restructuring right now, especially if the state governments aren't coming to the party to give you guys rollover provisions. So I would say wait and see for those people that are affected heavily with these new rules, with the current structure they have. I would say wait till probably end of 2027 calendar year, and then decide, okay, should we do anything about it? Revisit it. Actually, revisit.
Because we'll have an election shortly thereafter, right?
Yeah.
So you'll probably get a feel of, I guess, what other political parties, are putting out there, and, what decisions you may need to make now or into the future.
Yeah. And that's the best move. Like, you don't want to spend all this cost and end up like everything changes anyway. Yeah. So it's better just not to change anything. Technically, most of the rules stay the same. The tax on trust happened on 1st of July 2028. So you got 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your current structure still works. Negative gearing's gone. We get it, but it's grandfathered, so you probably still have it. And the CGT discount happens all the way till 1st of July 2027. So the movement of the value won't jump that much from after 1st of July to 2027 to the end of 2027. So you have some room to play. I wouldn't make any changes straight away. Yeah.
I agree, mate. Like, what I took from today is, there's lots of changes. They haven't come in yet. Get advice. Make sure you've got a team, and take action when the time is right. Davey, thanks for coming in, mate.
No problems. Happy to be here.